Everyone. Today I'm in conversation with André Benine from the University of Bordeaux, who has been doing over a number of years, I believe, a science-based virtual exchange. But before we dig in and talk about the virtual exchange, André, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do at the University of Bordeaux.
Okay, so nice to meet you, everyone. I'm André Benine. I'm a research and an associate professor at Bordeaux University in the Department of Engineering.
And you've been doing a virtual exchange because your field is, as you say, engineering and other science subjects. And you've been collaborating with our other colleague, Alexandra, who's from the Department of Languages. So can you explain how this collaboration started and how you make this work as a virtual exchange?
Okay, so we have a program with the University of Cincinnati. It's a blended mobility program. And it actually started even before it was formalized as a subject or as a course. So like the way we found to give credits for the students for the work they do in this exchange program is to replace their English grade by the grades that they received in this program. So we did it sort of informally for a few years, and then I think it was in 2000 or 2021 with Alexandra, we managed to create a course with a syllabus and everything that's required for a course. And now it's an official course in the University of Bordeaux. So that's how I got to collaborate with Alexandra, because she's in the English department or in the language department.
And tell us more, expand a bit more about the structure and the content of this virtual exchange. So tell us what's in it and what the students have to do on this course.
Yeah, so the idea is that the students acquire the basic knowledge for literature research. So we are working with any students in the fields of science and technology in Bordeaux. And the partners from Cincinnati, they are also from science, like mainly from chemistry and biology or biochemistry. And so we sort of choose a topic with the students based on their suggestions. And they form groups of 4 students, 2 from Bordeaux and 2 from Cincinnati. And then they get a topic which is scientifically relevant and is broad enough so that students from different backgrounds can work together. So they're actually doing literature review and reading papers and seeing what's the latest publications on the topic, what are the trends in research in this topic. And they're supposed to prepare a presentation to tell us what they've found in their research.
You say it started off in chemistry, but I see that it's expanded over the years. So what disciplines are included in this virtual exchange?
So I have students from engineering, from physics, informatics, or computer science, I'd say, chemistry, biology, environmental engineering as well. I think these are the main topics.
And they do the work in English?
They do everything in English, yeah. Even with me, we have some meetings before they start working together. All the communication that I have with the students, I do everything in English. So I think when they're working in Paris with 2 French students, they may speak French, but
yes.
in a group, it's always in English.
And so what are the learning objectives for the students? Because some tutors have been in the past skeptical or reluctant to take on a STEM-based virtual exchange. What's your response to that? How does that work for you, and what do the students gain?
I think the students gain what's mainly we'll call like soft skills. They'll gain confidence about working in an international environment. They must learn how to organize themselves as well. That's a big part of the work. So we require them to have weekly meetings, and they report their meetings with meeting minutes and these kind of things, meeting reports, so that they set the next steps. So every week they discuss, they show the work that they've done, and they define their tasks for the coming weeks. So that's a good way of keeping track of the work they're doing. And it's also about like learning how to read the scientific paper, how to, it's more and more relevant also to make sure that the sources are reliable. So we do talk a little bit about this as well.
Mm.
And I mean, the scientific topics that they're working on, they're very broad. So like, it could be like water sustainability or innovative polymers, or I mean, very broad topics, so that everyone can find a contribution and see how people in their field of expertise are working on the topic. So I'd say from the technical point of view, it's not really, doesn't go really deep, but they do learn how to read scientific papers, how to organize themselves, how to communicate the results as well. Because even we have like a seminar where they present their work for everyone else. Most of the time, no one is really a specialist on the topic, so they have to make sure that they explain the context well. They could go a bit deeper on the subject to explain what's the trend in the research, what's been done, what are the open issues.
Given that it's transdisciplinary, would it be true to say that there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning going on then? If they're from different disciplines, they must be learning from each other throughout this project.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, some topics, if they're studying, for example, artificial intelligence, I would say that the students from computer science, they may be one step ahead than the biologists, for example, but they always try to find like a field of application of artificial intelligence within the biology field, so that everyone can contribute and they learn a lot from each other. I mean, the contribution from the professors, it's mainly in the beginning to get the work going, get the workflow going, and then once it's rolling, then it's up to the students to do their work. So it requires a lot of autonomy as well from the students. And we also encourage them to look for researchers in both universities who work on that topic. So it's easier to reach out for people that are in the same university. And sometimes they're successful in doing that as well. So they can actually go and see these people, talk with them about this, see what each university is doing on those topics.
You give credits, and so that's already a motivation for the students to participate. But what are some of the other challenges that science students might encounter in engaging with international students in intercultural contexts? Were they always interested, or did you have to kind of push it along a lot?
We don't have many places for the students. Like it's only like 10 to 12 students who take part. We always manage think about balancing the number of students in Bordeaux and in Cincinnati. So usually the students are very motivated. I mean, since I have to select them, and Alexandra as well, we have to do some screening, and then, I mean, motivation is the main topic that we use to select students. Of course, we ask them to have like a minimum English level so they can communicate. But whether it's the minimum or fluent doesn't make any difference, right? It's just like to make sure that they're going to be able to communicate with their peers. We also look for students who have proper academic results, so that they don't have to balance between, do I have to study for another test or do this?
Right.
So we want to make sure we find students who are comfortable with their workload, so they have an extra charge of work on this program. But main motivation is the main program. I mean, so far we didn't have any problems trying to motivate students. They usually know why they're doing this, and sometimes they want to apply for international master programs. So this would be a good way to start getting in contact with international students.
What you've told me before is, I mean, I know you're struggling with funding at the moment, so you might not be able, or you and your students won't necessarily be able to travel to Cincinnati. But in the past, this has been kind of a blended program, so there has been a physical mobility as well. How did that work? Did you have the Cincinnati students to Bordeaux and vice versa? And what do you do on those? How do you organize the time on those visits?
Since the beginning of the program, we had a blended mobility format, right? So they start working online in January, and they get to know each other in March, like mid-March. That's when they have the spring break in the United States. So the Cincinnati students, they come to Bordeaux, and during this week, it's the same when we go there. We usually go there in May, when our semester is almost over, like most of them have finished their tests. We visit some labs. So depending on the professors who are accompanying the students and the availability of the colleagues in each university. So we have some labs visits. The students, they attend courses. So they go to lectures when they come here to a lab class, for example. We also have some cultural activities. So whenever they come to Bordeaux, we make sure to go for some wine tasting.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely. And you go to a baseball game, don't you, when you go there?
We go to a baseball
Oh, you
game.
do?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess correctly.
Yeah.
The cultural aspect, very important.
Yeah. So we get to visit the campus, visit some facilities in both aspects, academia and research.
Okay.
So for teaching and research, and also some cultural activities like, as I mentioned, like baseball game, or we might go out for a restaurant. We used to go to Dune du Pilat, which is a sand dune near the ocean here in Bordeaux. Like last year, we went to Saint-Emilion. So it may change a bit from one year to another, but the main idea is sort of balance these three components, like research, academic, and cultural. So the students can have some fun as well.
Exactly. What do the students say at the end of this project? Because it sounds like it's many months long of collaboration. So you must see some changes along the way. What do they say at the end about the experience?
We don't notice big change on the way they interact from the first time they meet each other here in Bordeaux and 2 months later in May when we go to Cincinnati. I mean, I'm really persuaded that having a physical contact, like really seeing each other, helps a lot in the exchange. Yeah. So I'm always encouraging them to have their cameras on when they have the meetings, so that they can see each other and have a bit more commitment to each other when they're making the meetings. I think once they really met each other, then the relationship and also the work between them goes to a very different level. We try to like prepare them to get to know each other even before the program starts. Like we usually have a shared file, like a PowerPoint presentation, in which one each student they prepare, and also the professors. We prepare a slide saying like why we're taking part in this program, what do we like to do, and what do we study, these kind of things. But it's just a slide, right? Then they work in groups, they get to know each other, and then but they're mainly interacting with pairs, right? It's a pair from Bordeaux with a pair from Cincinnati,
right?
And then when we get everyone together, then it makes a big difference, like in the group dynamics and everything.
So before I let you go, can I ask you, why do you do it as a tutor? What advice would you give to other tutors who are kind of thinking, oh, I don't know how to do this, it's a lot of work and everything, but you've been doing it for many years now, so why do you do it?
I was always interested in international environments. Like originally I come from Brazil, and during my university years, when I was an undergrad student, so I lived in Germany, in Switzerland, and then I'm living in France. Like being able to interact in international environments is a very useful skill as a professional. So I remember, for example, when I finished my studies in Brazil, I was working for a car manufacturer in Brazil, but I had bosses who came from Germany, like I had to deal with people from Sweden, in India, in South Africa, and just knowing a bit about the culture, or that helps a lot, like to being able to speak English, that makes it much easier as well. But being aware of cultural differences, that makes the relations, even if they're just professional relations, makes it much easier. So I'll say myself, I'm a product of international environments, and I can always see like students usually sometimes it's a good kind of program for the students who are not really willing to take the big step to go for a whole semester abroad, because they're having some interaction with the other students. It's sort of a comfort zone in the beginning because they're doing it online, and they get to meet each other for 1 week. Then we go there for 1 week as a group. So it's not very long. They're not on their own. And that seems to trigger their desire to take the bigger step later on. So I had lots of students who took part in this program, and they sort of acquired a taste for international environments and went on for an international PhD or an internship abroad or master's program abroad. So I think it's a good way for them to to take the first step, for example. I think it's very useful for that.
Thank you, André. I hear that I really hear that you want to pass on your passion for, intercultural experiences to your students. So I hope you continue to do that in the future. And thank you for spending time with me today talking about your program.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.